Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
The first storm of the fall has arrived in San Diego County. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Across the county, we've seen dark clouds hanging around with periods of rain, thunder, and lightning. The National Weather Service in San Diego sent out a reminder on social media that when thunder roars, you go indoors. It looks like more wet weather could be in store. Meteorologist Justin Povic has a first look at the forecast.
Well, the rain's already made its way into the area. In fact, even some lightning strikes earlier on. Those showers will continue off and on as we go throughout the overnight. Temperatures dropping down into the upper 50s Oceanside toward Chula Vista. Back over the interior, not looking as soggy. Borrego Springs down to 52. And then we look down the road and see more wet weather in the equation. Will that continue throughout the duration of the weekend? I'll let you know coming up a little bit later on. Stick around.
The incoming wet weather is a worry for those trying to help the hundreds of migrants who are still crossing the border near Jacumba Hot Springs every day. KPBS reporter Jacumba says the migrants are still being held at outdoor sites without shelter.
It's quite the scene if you know where to look. Months after migrant camps first formed near Jacumba Hot Springs, they're still going strong.
I'm here at a migrant camp near Jacumba Hot Springs, and as you can see, there's a lot of people who are trying to stay sheltered from the rain. The conditions are starting to get colder and wetter here, and they're just looking to try and stay dry and warm.
Before the rain started to come down, we spoke with a migrant. Julian, who didn't want to use his last name, is from Colombia, fleeing persecution in his home country due to anti-LGBTQ discrimination. He described the conditions at the makeshift camp during the single day he's been there.
Y las condiciones han sido desfavorables, mucho frío. Nos han ayudado mucho trayendo agua, comida.
Sam Schultz is the boots-on-the-ground help for many of the migrants. Working alongside the nonprofits Al Otro Lado and Border Kindness, his team has been providing food, water, and warmth 7 days a week.
There we go.
He said in addition to firewood, blankets, warmer clothing, and better shelter are what the migrants are most desperate for.
The movement has actually accelerated. There are more people going through every day, an average of 350 to 500 per day through the camps. What is the big change is that the Border Patrol has become more efficient at about moving them out.
Schultz says Customs and Border Protection started detaining migrants at what he calls a trio of open-air detention sites near Jacumba back in May. But now, the weather is very different.
Even though 40 doesn't sound cold compared to other places, but remember, these are people without proper clothing. It's nighttime, exposed, some are really young. And so we're worried mostly about the kids.
Kaiser Permanente's Dr. V. Nguyen says medical concerns are a serious issue at the sites.
My main medical concerns as a physician would be hypothermia, especially for those who are very young or with underlying medical conditions, cardiovascular events, and spread of infectious diseases, especially respiratory. And we're worried particularly about flu.
Schultz says it can snow in Jacumba during the colder months, and temperatures often fall into the 30s. He says the situation is now dire, and the federal government needs to take action. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Customs and Border Protection is pushing back on claims it's running open-air detention sites. Late today, the agency sent a statement saying it's leveraging all available resources and partnerships to vet and process migrants, and that it prioritizes the health and safety of all they encounter by providing appropriate medical care and coordinating with emergency medical services. A major milestone today in the new Terminal 1 project at San Diego International Airport. The last steel beam was placed, but not before a ceremony marking the occasion. KPBS reporter John Carroll is live at the airport with an update on the massive construction project. John.
Maya, it's a little off topic, but let me give you a little weather update first because I feel compelled to. The rain has been on and off out here. It's now off, but the wind has picked up just tremendously. Anyway, back to today's news. What is behind me right here is what is called the new T1. That's what they call it around here. It is a massive building. I learned today from an airport official that if it was stood on its end, it would be the third tallest building in the world. Now, this afternoon, when the weather was nicer, top airport brass gathered with city leaders, representatives from the airlines, and the construction companies to sign the final steel beam to be placed in the superstructure. Though it might not look like it, this building is now 40% complete. The new Terminal 1 parking plaza is now 45% complete. Airport Authority Board Chairman Gil Cabrera says the experience of being in the new Terminal 1 will be nothing like the current Terminal 1, built in the 1960s when San Diego was much smaller than it is now. He says the next thing to look for is the exterior glass going in, which will include a really neat feature.
You're going to see the exterior of the building walls go up, and what's called the luminous wave, which is the glass enclosure of the building, which will look like a wave pattern, and it does a great job of letting light in, so it's very bright inside from outdoor light, but it will hold out the heat of the sun. So it's going to be a really cool, both functional and artistic look at the building.
Okay, let's talk some timelines now. The new T1 parking plaza is slated to open late next year. Then a really big moment is scheduled to come in the summer of 2025 when the first 19 gates will come online. After that, the current Terminal 1 will be demolished. Then the second part of the new Terminal 1 with its 11 more gates is scheduled to open in early 2028. And remember, with all this construction out here, make sure that you allow plenty of time when coming to the airport. 2 hours ahead of your flight for domestic and 3 for international. Maya?
Thanks, John. A lot of people will be traveling for Thanksgiving next week. Is there anything else that they should know before heading to the airport?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, if you're going to park your car here, there's only one parking garage that's currently opening, and you must make a reservation if you plan on parking there. Apart from that, if you haven't been to the airport in a while, all of the approaches to get in here, if you're going to Terminal 1 or 2, they have all changed. So make sure that you consult the airport's website before coming out here, because it's pretty snaky and twisty and turny, but you'll make it if you allow plenty of time.
That's some great advice, John. Thank you. Chula Vista City Council member Andrea Cardenas is facing new calls to resign amid criminal charges. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki says some critics are now focusing on her position with the San Diego Association of Governments.
It's been almost 2 weeks since Chula Vista City Council member Andrea Cardenas was charged with fraud and grand theft of federal pandemic aid dollars. On Tuesday, the City Council met for the first time since San Diego County District Attorney Summer Steffen announced the charges, 7 felony counts, against the first-term council member. Ahead of the meeting, a group of Chula Vista residents stood on the steps of City Hall and called for Cardenas to step down. Jesse Navarro is a retired San Diego police officer and Chula Vista resident.
Now that things are coming forward, we must continue to hold her accountable, and basically, if she has any decency, she should resign. She should resign immediately.
Cardenas did not show up to Tuesday's City Council meeting. If Cardenas doesn't resign, some critics say city officials should remove her from her position on SANDAG, the San Diego Association of Governments. That's the regional agency that oversees transportation and planning. Critics also said the city should censure Cardenas or suspend her without pay. The group that held the late afternoon press conference says their protest wasn't about politics. Here's longtime resident Russ Hall.
This is not about the Democrats or Republicans. This is about right and wrong. And what is going on in these council chambers, or what has gone on in these council chambers, is flat out wrong. And the citizens of this community deserve much better.
Still, many of them say they don't trust the council's Democrats and want Republican Mayor John McCann to take Cardenas' seat on Sandag. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
The race to fill the now vacant seat on the San Diego City Council is getting underway. A special election for Council District 4 will be combined with the March 5th primary election. The district includes several communities in southeast San Diego. Current council member Monica Montgomery Stepp is resigning after winning a runoff election for the County Board of Supervisors seat vacated by Nathan Fletcher. Potential council candidates can pick up nomination papers in the city clerk office starting today. They can begin submitting those papers on November 22nd. A charter school network in North County recently dropped its policy protecting transgender students' privacy because of a threat of a lawsuit. Advocates tell KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen that Classical Academy's new policy essentially outs students to parents.
The Classical Academies is a charter school network serving more than 5,300 students in North County, including Coastal Academy in Oceanside. Classical Chief Executive Officer Cameron Curry said in a statement to KPBS that the school changed its policy after a threat of legal action by a constitutional lawyer. After reviewing the preliminary injunctions issued in recent cases against Chino Valley Unified School District and Escondido Union School District, it was clear that our policy was very similar to the one enjoined by the federal court in the Escondido case. This made keeping the old policy language untenable. Curry said Dean Boreals is the attorney who threatened Classical Academies with the lawsuit. Boreals says there was no threat. He says he was informing the board of legal consequences as a concerned parent.
We didn't specifically threaten a lawsuit against Classical Academy over their parent secrets policy, but we did inform them that their policy was unconstitutional and needed to be changed.
Classical's old policy says that teachers and staff could not disclose a student's gender identity to anyone, including the student's parents, without the student's consent. It's the same policy that got the Escondido Union School District sued. 2 teachers there said it was against their religious beliefs to lie to parents. A federal judge recently ruled that the policy was likely unconstitutional. Their lawsuit is under review by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The issue was front and center at last night's Escondido Union High School District's meeting.
How do we protect students from lifelong decisions without their parents involved?
Classical's new policy requires parents to be notified if the student changes their pronouns or names to match their gender identity. Max Disposti from the North County LGBTQ Resource Center calls that forced outing.
Even a student with a family that is supported needs their own time to be able to come out. It's their story to tell. It's no one else's story to be disclosed. And that's really a basic privacy protections that the state of California has guaranteed for many, many years.
Disposti says research has shown that trans students' mental health fare better when schools are safe grounds for their gender journey. Nikki Faddick, a parent at Classical, agrees. She says her rights were not violated under the old policy, but the new policy is deeply concerning for her children and their friends.
It creates an aura of distrust around relationships that kids had previously felt were safe spaces on campus with trusted adults, teachers, counselors, that now they're questioning, are these safe spaces? Will my confidential information be shared without my permission?
Boreal says that fear is overblown. The core of the issue is a parent's right to know.
For over 100 years, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that the 14th Amendment includes the recognition of the fundamental right of parents to direct the care, education, and upbringing of their children.
Classical says the new policy strengthens support for students. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
The University of California is spending $7 million to improve its response to conflict stemming from the Israel-Hamas war. UC President Michael Drake made the announcement at the UC Board of Regents meeting. Drake says some students and staff members expressed feeling unsafe in light of what they feel is tension on campuses. The funding is meant to enhance safety and improve the climate on UC's 10 campuses. It will be used for emergency mental health services, educational programs to help improve public discourse, and training for staff and faculty. It's been a rocky year for relations between the U.S. and China. President Joe Biden says the goal of a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping today is to put the relationship on a more normal course. Karen Kafa has a look at how it could impact trade, tech, and more.
President Joe Biden's summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping coming after months of high tensions between the two countries.
There's a lot going on, and I think that both sides are looking for a little bit of stabilization in the relationship.
Biden said one goal for the meeting is to improve things.
We have to ensure that competition does not veer into conflict.
For the leaders of the world's two largest economies, trade is a top issue. In the first 9 months of 2023, Mexico and Canada eclipsed China as America's top trading partners. The Biden administration framing it as a way to minimize risk from exposure to increased geopolitical uncertainty without an all-out decoupling of the two economic superpowers.
The trade relationship is enormously important to both countries. That doesn't mean that there aren't very real concerns about the behavior of the other country.
Lily McElwee is an expert in Chinese foreign policy at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. She says an agreement to crack down on the export of chemicals used to make fentanyl, expected to be finalized at the summit, could be important for Biden here at home.
This is an important issue that galvanizes Republicans and Democrats, and I think it could be a big win if he's able to secure some agreements from Beijing.
Beijing has also been critical of the Biden administration's limits on the types of semiconductors U.S. companies can sell to China, the world's largest chip market. The Biden administration says it's a move to protect U.S. national security. Beijing has accused Washington of weaponizing trade and tech issues. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
Chula Vista's Harborside Park has been closed for more than a year. That's renewed attention to the divide in who has access to parks. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki says many residents have been frustrated for years.
Harborside Park wasn't on the agenda for the Chula Vista City Council meeting last month, but it was on residents' minds.
It is amazing how much improvement on these parks when you all close Harborside Park. Did you forget about the people on the west side?
So first and foremost,
the City Council was meeting to discuss working with an LA construction company to explore some future park sites. But several residents took the podium to point out that a lot of people are also waiting for updates on the parks that already exist. West Chula Vista, they said, hasn't been getting much attention.
It's not really fair for each side to get all these high quality parks. Everybody read attachments and see what they have. They have pickleballs, they have structure for tennis courts, they have basketball, they have everything you want. And what do you put in the west side? Nothing, zero.
The City Council made the controversial decision to close Harborside Park more than a year ago. They want to explore leasing or selling the land. But that decision has reignited a debate over the unequal way that parks are distributed across Chula Vista. The divide is between the newer, wealthier side of the city, East Chula Vista, and the older side, West Chula Vista, where there's less new development and more working-class neighborhoods. When you look at a map, the west side is mostly gray, but East Chula Vista is covered in patches of green. In 2021, the east side had almost 3.5 times more park space than the west side, according to data from the city.
There's a lot of research that shows that poorer neighborhoods have less access to safe parks.
Elva Arredondo is a professor at San Diego State University. She says that parks have a lot of benefits for people who live nearby, and not having access to them is a problem.
They may not have features that would make it easy for families to come and bring their kids, or they may have broken, pathways. They may not have the greenery, or there may be lack of lighting or open space, for people to sort of feel safe.
That's not to say that West Chula Vista doesn't have nice parks. Alondra Padilla says she comes to visit Hilltop Park every day. It has a beautiful, sweeping grass field with play structures, a gazebo, and a trickling river. Her son, Mateo, is autistic and loves the smell of the eucalyptus trees. She says the park relaxes him.
So this relax for my autistic boy. When we walk a little more there, my kids start to laughing. Yeah, so that's the reason we love to come in here.
But even still, Padilla says she also wants to see more parks on the west side. Because of Mateo's autism, it helps to move from park to park during the day.
Sometimes when the park have a lot of kids, we have to quit to go because my kid can start to scream like today. So we have to go to another park or change the activity.
The city says it's a hard problem to solve. Lots of West Chula Vista was built before there were requirements to have certain amounts of park space. Newer building codes also require developers to fund new parkland as part of their projects, which means more parks in East Chula Vista, where most of the new construction is happening. But city leaders say they're working on ways to bring more parks to the west side of the city.
We will now move on to item 5.9. Madam Clerk, who pulled this item?
At that same meeting last month, the City Council voted to explore several future park sites. Here's Mayor John McCann.
As we know, I think many of the speakers talked about the west side of Chula Vista, west of 805, has a park deficit. And we need to be able to find ways to be able to build new parks.
That proposal, he said, could open the door for at least one new park on the west side. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
Starting today, we'll be seeing a lot more construction projects in the city of San Diego. The city has allocated $9 million to fix uneven and damaged sidewalks. There are already 2,500 projects that are shovel-ready, but the city says property owners should also be expected to do their part.
We have about 5,000 notices in our backlog currently that we need to send out to property owners. What we've tried to do with the Safe Sidewalks program is eliminate that fee barrier of the $2,100 permit fee that's required to take work to your sidewalk. The permit is really an automatic permit that we issue the property owner if they provide us all the information that's required.
City leaders say many times property owners do not realize whether it's their responsibility to fix uneven sidewalks. And here is a tip. If a tree causing root damage to the sidewalk is facing the street, it is the city's responsibility to repair it. But if the tree is on the side closest to the property, it's up to the owners to repair. California utility regulators appear poised to take a vote on new rules for apartment buildings, schools, and farms interested in adding solar panels. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says the vote is happening after several delays.
Solar advocates blasted the proposed changes released last summer, arguing the California Public Utilities Commission is eliminating financial incentives for renters and other multi-meter properties to install solar. Critics argue building owners will have no reason to invest thousands of dollars on solar panels.
It weakens the economic incentives for solar adoption multifamily housing. And it's essentially stripping away the cost savings for the building owner, which then obviously gets transferred to the people that are renting.
The first proposed decision eliminated the ability to share solar credits between landlords and residents for all but a few low-income multifamily complexes. A revised version, which includes renters but not landlords, is back on the table for apartment buildings, but not for schools, farms, or small businesses.
To make solar work in a multi-tenant building, the CPUC needs to adopt what's called building-level netting, meaning that they sum up the energy consumed across all of the tenants and treat that as a whole.
Solar industry officials say the CPUC slashed financial incentives for homeowners last December, and critics say they're doing the same for multi-metered properties now.
We need utility scale projects to move forward. We need distributed projects to move forward, and we need efficiency and conservation. That's how we get to 100% clean energy in California. And we really need the governor to make it a priority.
The CPUC will vote on the proposal on Thursday. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Already some wet weather in the vicinity, and we're not finished as we go throughout the next couple of days. The warmth is going to again, take a little bit of a break, but could we see some changes over the course of the weekend from Saturday into Sunday? I'll let you know coming right up. First off, let's start off with this evening. Already that first batch of wet weather making its way through, and still could see some showers lingering here into the overnight. Lots of clouds around, so we're not going to be talking about temperatures dropping off all that much. We go into Thursday, again, still that potential for some showers, but another round of shower conditions slated to move into the picture as we go into Friday and also into Friday night. not extremely active here on Thursday, for that matter, again, as we look our way off toward the north, but there could be a few travel impacts, at least some minor travel delays. Let's take you down the road here, and like I said, again, a couple of showers, couple of clouds around, again, as we work our way toward the shoreline, heading out toward Friday. But Friday night into Saturday, I think, is our next batch of wet weather rolling in here over the interior valleys. Also looking at some showers pressing back into the picture as we go into Friday night and Saturday. But there's the weekend changes I was talking about. And along with those changes with the sky cover, the sun's coming out, we're also going to start to notice an increase in the mercury. Yeah, the numbers will be climbing back up to 80 by Monday afternoon. Over the mountainous terrain, looking at sun and clouds and cool on Thursday. Can't rule out a shower or two. Next round of wet weather pressing its way in Friday night into Saturday. And then also notice a bit of a warming trend back into the 50s as we work our way into Monday. Meanwhile, over the desert locations, we will be talking about the clouds rolling back into Friday night into Saturday. Along with that, some showers. We head in toward the weekend, the second half of the weekend, and the sun makes a return. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povick.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the News Hour, Israeli forces raid Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital in search of Hamas. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Kernza is seed grain. Scientists have been hoping to develop into a crop that's more climate friendly than wheat and corn. NPR's Morning Edition says now liquor distillers are taking an interest. And KPBS Midday Edition is getting us ready for the weekend with a preview of what's new in local arts and culture. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.